Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This is Leadership, your intersection between growth and leadership. I've got a really, really special episode today. It's my very first international guest. And,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that Jonathan reached out to me. And so, listen, before we get started, I'm going to tell everybody that's listening or watching on YouTube a little bit about Jonathan. So, Jonathan has been in education, for 23 years. And he is also known as, Jonathan the Edunaut Nalder. And he's on the leading edge of learning how digital tools and a focus on our humanity can boost the success of students everywhere. I think that's super interesting. He has also learned by working with luminaries such as Dr. Ruben Puentedura, which we all know from the SAMR model, of course, Dr. Larry Johnson, and also Professor Stephen Heppel. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly, which is from the Future We community, of course, and his current role as Chief Futures Officer at STEM Punks. We're going to be talking about that. I love the name STEM Punks and how tools alone are not enough, but must be combined with futures thinking to truly transform lives. So to this end, Jonathan is writing the first book in a series for fellow Edunauts to be titled Design Thinking 5.0, and we will be getting into that one as well. Jonathan is a globally awarded innovator, Mars Society ambassador, ISTE online presenter, and Co-Spaces and Merge Edu ambassador. Woo! Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
I'm kind of regretting how everything I put into the bio I sent you now, because I have to sit here that whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, I definitely have that wide range of interests, and I bet, from talking to you, I know you do as well. I bet a lot of the listeners do as well. If you're an edunaut, we want to start with that, like an adventurous educator,
yeah,
who wants to explore. I bet a bunch of listeners have that kind of bio as well.
Absolutely. Often, like when we think about the people that'll connect and listen to the podcast, of course, the first objective is to add value to as many people as we can in different ways, right? So if you're writing a book, then it could be through the book, and you can have an influence, on people all over the place. But the podcast is also another great way to reach those edunauts, if you want, that are out there, that have that drive. And and if these episodes can help just to fuel what they're doing out there and that passion that they have, and to give them the courage to be able to want to take to want to take risk and just jump in and just try different things. I think this is great. But the whole concept of edunauts, how did you come up with that, Jonathan? I think it's really interesting. There's got to be a link, of course, with being an astronaut, right? There's got to be something there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always been a big, science fiction fan, etc. And had an interest in aerospace from, when I was a kid. When they ask you, what do you want to be? I always said a pilot and a writer.
Okay.
I got to do commercial pilot's license right out of high school.
Okay.
And so I've always had that ongoing fascinating, with aerospace and then, space. And it's kind of that, it's that ultimate frontier, I guess, like a real
absolutely
test of human innovation and ingenuity, etc. For me, there's so much inspiration that you can get from the concept of space and space exploration and everything that goes into it. There's it's just a massive amount that you can then bring back to education.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I'm a Star Trek fan myself. So, and
Star Wars versus Star Trek.
And I've always been the one, like even when I was young, I've always remembered, looking up, and I still do it to this day as a 50-year-old adult. I always look up into the sky and I wonder, I imagine things like, I wonder if we'd be able to travel like they do, on the Star Trek and the Star Wars episodes, and just that just the possibility of what you can discover and learn. To me, I'd be like, I'd be on that ship right away and take me, and, to discover it. And I'll ask my wife. I'll ask Bridget. I'll say, would you come? And she's like, no way. I'm going to stay right here. But I can see what you mean. That whole concept of, infinite possibilities, reaching out, always striving to evolve and to be a better version of ourselves today than we were yesterday.
And that's sort of what if, until such a time as, a lot of people have been out there and done it all, we can imagine, and we got, those kind of possibilities. So We might talk about this in a little bit, yeah, but a bunch of the sort of workshops and stuff that I do, some of the work with the Mars Society ambassadors is all around that idea of taking those especially Mars-based type scenarios and using it as a big what if with students and teachers. And yeah, it's just exciting. So yeah, Edunaut partly comes out of that mindset, like that person, you know, obviously education and astronauts, you got that connection. It's pretty obvious. And yeah, and then it's just a nice playful kind of label concept, but it really comes down to that idea of adventurous educators. And at the moment I'm just sort of playing around with it. It's a cool nickname that I've adopted, but I'd love to build in the future build a community out of it of other
Absolutely. I love it.
space,
You know, I can
space
see hashtags
educators.
and t-shirts, Edunauts, and hats,
Yeah,
Edunauts, and it's very
yeah,
catchy, but just the concept behind it and what it
the
represents,
concept.
I think that's what, you know, can reach out and mean, you know, have meaningful impact on people, you know, to be able to be
And
part of a community that represents that.
yeah, and it's almost a word that maybe taps into a little bit of what we've got going on, and like I think you're probably a bit similar in terms of connecting with other educators who are also interested in this new thing and trying this, and we'll probably get on to talk about the Codebreaker and X Factor and Mammoth community soon of other like
Absolutely.
writers and authors who are in education. It's that same kind of those adventurous people, and we're always seeking them out and inviting them onto podcasts, and finding excuses and reasons to connect. That's what we
I
love
love it.
about it's what we love about conferences, going to big conferences, because of those encounters that you can actually find your tribe, I guess, and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I love
even further than that, what I find with the communities that we're surrounded with, you know, you talked about Codebreaker, X Factor, and Mammoth Learning. That's over in your end, over
yeah.
in Australia. You're in Brisbane, right? Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. That's where you
Uh-huh.
are presently.
Yep.
So yeah, so we've got people connecting all over the world, and you know, you talked about going to conferences and being inspired. What I like about the community that we're in is that, you know, it just doesn't stop at the conference. It often will participate in events like that, and we'll
Yeah.
be pumped up and we'll have a lot of energy, and we'll have a whole bunch of plans. But then when we get back to our regular programming, you know what I'm saying, the day in and day out, then we forget about it. But you know, I'm finding a lot of people and making a lot of connections with people that are just, you know, the action part is there as well. So not only do they go and resource themselves, but they actually take the steps and get into action and actually make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I'm not sure, I haven't checked with you yet if you're on Twitter. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So if you want, I'd love to connect with people there. I'm just at JNXYZ. That's me. There's a bunch of social networks that you can probably find us all on, but Twitter's, as far as Twitter goes, and educators like education, etc. That's probably my favorite. Yeah, my favorite in terms of connecting with other educators, despite everything else that might be happening around that particular platform. Whatever. But in terms of educators, I find that still a really, really strong.
Yeah. I think there's still a lot of us educators that are in that community, and it's still going strong. You know, there's a lot of beautiful sharing that's going on, connections. So yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan, we're going to link all that up in our website. Of course, there's going to be some show notes following this episode. And for those of you listening, and watching on YouTube, you know what you got to do. You got to head on down to inspireleadership.ca. In the podcast section, we will have a page for Jonathan with his contact information. We'll get his Twitter handle, his email, and those will be different ways you can get a hold of him. But so, Jonathan, I'd like to get into STEM punks.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. You know, can you tell us, a little bit, what is it? What's going on with STEM punks, and what is it that you do as the Chief Futures Officer?
Yeah, well, it's been great for me. I started working with STEM punks here about 3.5 years ago here in Australia, and it was kind of like finding a little home for myself. Been in education, as you said, for 23 years, high school, primary schools, higher education, and then worked on my own a little bit. We might talk about the Future We project and community, but it's tough to, and you might know this, like it's tough to do the consulting and run a business yourself.
Absolutely.
So finding STEM punks, I mean, they're actually really not far from where I live as well. Their team, our HQ, and very similar philosophy, etc. So, I mean, you can probably get a little bit like, so STEM, obviously, obviously that's a big part of what we do and here in Australia, but we also STEM Punks also we have a team in Latin America at the moment and team in the US, done projects in the Middle East and the UK as well as Vietnam. Like we're really trying to bring sort of, I guess, high quality STEM education globally. But Australia has been our little proving ground, you might say. So definitely your classic STEM and meeting that need for schools and teachers that know it's necessary, but lack that expertise on campus.
So what does those services look like? Is it like, you guys offer some resources online, or is it more, we can get you into the school and get you actually working with, our grade 5 class or a high school class?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of everything. And, it's still awesome. Almost every week I'm in a school somewhere working, face to face with classes of students. But, we'll also beam in a little bit like this, but into a classroom. And we've done it to, where you can have 200 or 300 kids across the school who get to see you on the screen and do things that way. But we also have those online class versions where that's not possible. You can just jump on and sort of learn on demand. But when you come to the punk part of the name, you might start thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe it's not just straight down the line sort of STEM. And look, I'll be honest, I have an arts background originally, actually. And so the idea of science and, maths, etc., is not my native area. But I guess I came around to loving STEM, firstly, and, anyone in education understands about silos, and especially in, high schools where everyone has their subject area. Let's be honest, there's not often a lot of collaboration, although that's changing in a lot of places. But STEM is like, suddenly it's actually okay to have 4 subjects who are collaborating and connecting. So that idea of cross curricular collaboration really sold me. And it wouldn't matter if that it was science, technology, engineering, maths, could be whatever subject that's working together. That's, for me, that's awesome. And then the fact that STEM is generally project-based, you're problem-based, you're looking at real-world problems to solve. So those two things, I mean, like, no matter what my background and how well I did it or didn't do at school in some of those subjects, like those are really important values to be supporting in education. So, and then when you bring in the sort of the punk, STEM punks very much has a little bit of attitude. It's questioning. It's trying to get students thinking differently. So a lot of the scenarios that we'll throw at students is an attempt to, we'll teach you some STEM skills along the way, but here's some real world problems that we want you to get your teeth stuck into. And so we use design thinking. So it's really a combination of STEM and design thinking together. And it's great because that, what we really found is that approach engages pretty much your whole group of students.
Absolutely.
There's always going to be some students who will, they'll absolutely love, maybe the more hardcore maths or science elements that are in there. But, that might be 10, 15% of the students in any given class. But broadening it out with design and looking at, sort of real human problems, suddenly everyone's like, yeah, okay, I can find a way into doing this. So so that's STEM punks. I've explained a little bit about that. At the moment we're doing I'll talk about some of the Mars and space ones. So one of my favorite, and I've been doing this for quite a few years even before STEM punks, and then we've been able to grow it inside STEM punks, is just a really simple question like, what would, if kids get to Mars, at some point, it's a way in the future, obviously, but after the first humans and the base is established, etc. When kids get to Mars, what will they need to be happy and healthy there?
Interesting.
And suddenly, there's room for a lot of solutions within that. Now, you still have to learn, okay, well, the gravity's only 1/3 and there's no real atmosphere. There's increased radiation. You still have to learn a lot of those kind of things. Whatever solution you come up with is going to have to take some of that into account. But you can see it's a much more inclusive kind of topic, I guess, that kids can really, get their design chops into and going. So yeah, that's a bit about the fun we get to at
Well,
Simcoms.
I think it's great, and I've always said, where I'm from in North Bay, Ontario, Canada, our school board it's not a very big school board, so we've got smaller schools, and within those schools, because they're so small, we've got a lot of multi-level classrooms, right? So we'll get a
Yeah,
classroom
right.
that has a grade 1, 2, 3, or a double classroom. So we
Mm,
always say when you have an opportunity to do that cross curriculum, right off the bat, it's a great way to see how you can save a lot of time as a teacher, right? Is to be able to evaluate a whole bunch of different items pertaining to your curriculum, and
mm,
being able to do it within one project. So that's number one. Number two is it permits you, it allows you to explore some of those passion projects with the kids as well. It doesn't
mm,
matter if they're in grade 2 or if they're in grade 11. It allows the student to be able to maybe explore some of the things that they're passionate about.
mm,
And like you
mm.
said, it says STEM. We'll talk about STEAM a lot,
Yeah,
STEAM,
of
and we'll put
course.
the
Yeah,
arts in, of course. But like you
yeah,
said, it's any subject really. It's any
yeah.
subject where I think the objective really is, like you said, is to be able to develop those design thinking, those critical skills for our kids, because they're the ones that are going to be taking over, the world from us eventually. And like us, well, we want, when we're in school, why aren't we talking about real stuff that's going on and real
Yeah.
problems that we're facing? As much, as much talking about the environment as, what's coming down the line with electric vehicles, and
Mm,
putting them in situations like that, and actually asking them the questions, because
mm.
they're going to be holding some of those jobs in the future that are going to be dealing with those
Yeah,
things.
totally. Yeah.
So we have to be talking about it in our classrooms, and we put a lot of emphasis on that, Jonathan. We're in
That's
Northern
awesome.
Ontario,
Yeah.
and we're
Mm.
not tropical, so one of the examples that I use with the teachers is, if we're going to talk about something in the classroom, we can talk about, let's say, the zoo, going to the zoo and zoo animals, and that's great. However, in our environment here,
Mm.
it's not really a reality, right? Going to or
Yeah.
seeing a zoo, there's some, but they're far enough away. So, is there anything else within our own community that we can integrate that's
Yeah.
actually going
Yeah.
on, and that's maybe an ongoing problem, and that we can get kids to start talking about? So
That's
just
great.
getting that
Yeah.
design
That's
thinking
great.
in,
Yeah.
and and allowing the students to be able to think in that way, and to ask questions, and to be
Mm.
critical about their thinking, I think is this sort of stuff that we need to be
Mm.
doing more in schools.
Yeah. Totally. And that's great to hear about where you're at. And it also means that you've got there's a value there where you value students' ideas and opinion. That student centered, the student voice. And in our workshops, we're very much like, I did some work. We also do sustainability and the sustainable development goals.
Yeah.
So there's a school that I'm working here with some year 9s and 10s. Now they live about an hour away from me.
Okay.
So I have a general idea of what their city is like, but
Yeah.
when it comes to what problems need solving there, it's much better if they decide that. So we had 4 of the goals, for instance, on this day for them to look at, and then choose which one of those goals probably is most important for where they live right now. And it's just fascinating because I could have said, okay, you guys are going to do this topic,
Yeah.
and they still would have researched it and done well. But it was fascinating just to sit back and see, well, out of the 4 goals that we had, which one did they choose? And the majority chose one in particular, which was actually the no poverty, the number one, or I
Okay.
think it is, of the
Okay.
Sustainable Development Goals. And it's just this instant insight into what do the kids think is important, like what's going on in their heads, what do they value. Yeah, and that surprised me actually. I thought that it probably wouldn't have been the one that I would have picked, but that's what I love about having a more open-ended kind of workshop. Now they still did the research, did their planning, produced their design, and showcased it.
Mm-hmm.
So they still did all that work, but of course, they're much more invested and motivated because of because we were able to build in the chance for them to make those decisions and have their input. So yeah, fascinating, and it's 23 years in education. Like, my first probably 10 years were not like this as a
Yes.
teacher,
Oh, yeah. 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 I hear you.
and maybe you were similar, but we did a lot of, I guess at my university when I did my degree, there was a lot of talk around, student-centered learning, etc.
Yeah.
We were taught that, but of course, as soon as you get in the classroom and you're dealing with everything when you're new, you naturally will go back to a much more structured, and obviously behavior management. You need a while to get your
Absolutely.
chops up on that.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. And then we won't we won't go too far into this, but of course we talk about the mass education system. Any large system is not always going to have room for a lot of variation and variety anyway,
Absolutely.
because it's a system. So it took me a number of years, and I had this weird thing where I sort of started doing some technology stuff. It was thrilling. I got one of the state education awards,
Really?
but it kind of made me go, you know what, I really should actually do something with my students that I would be deserving of getting that award. I'd done some cool kind of early experiments with some technologies, but I didn't feel like that was actually what. And I was working with learning difficulties students, so not students with learning disabilities, but difficulties.
Okay.
And which largely was a lot of boys, to be honest, in a lower socioeconomic school. Very, very structured program, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. I learned a lot about structuring programs and scaffolding, etc., from that, and how much support you can build in. But of course, these students aren't going to have someone there forever. They need to start developing some independent skills as well. So that was really my challenge. And to be honest, where I guess my journey into a lot of sort of innovation and technologies started was around that idea of these kids are going to leave me and go into high school soon, where they won't have as much support. And if I just only provide them a really highly scaffolded, sit here, do this. If that's all they've ever been given, they're gonna just collapse on it without when that's sort of taken away from them later in their schooling. So for me, getting into especially technology was a journey around, well, what tools are out there to help these kids be independent. And this is really early days of things like Palm handhelds.
Yes,
little
I remember the Palms. Yes.
And it was fascinating just to work with the students and see how these little, I called them personal learning devices, because it could really give them that independence of relying. It was the early days, also just after that, early days of the App Store and iPod touches, things like that. Suddenly they could have, even back then, there were people producing maths apps, say for fractions, just with videos explaining fractions, just purely that those kids could sit there and rewatch it, like hit rewind, watch it again, pause it.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Like just that. It's the simplest thing now that we've had, obviously, online video for so long. But
I can still remember when we would take just your basic calculator, you remember, and we would write words with the numbers and turn them upside down, and you can read the words. I seen something go by on social media the other day, and it actually just made me think of that. So, but
that's still fun.
It is still fun, actually. You're right. So I don't think we'll ever get to. I don't think I'll ever get away from that. But it is a great way to differentiate. We talk a lot here in our board. We talk a lot about developing, those executive function skills, and because we know that that's what's going to carry them, throughout life, right? So. And I think that by providing them that scaffolding, those, the right way, but at the same time, developing those executive functions, those skills, that's what's going to allow them to be able to, to pursue that next level and be able to be successful, right? With those basic competencies.
Yeah. And as I said, it definitely took me quite a few years into my career to have that, I guess, enough of a big picture to start going, oh, yep, I need more of that in my teaching. And then that seeing the impact that has on students, just giving them that bit more space, that bit of responsibility themselves. That's a value.
And teaching has changed a lot as well, you know, like it's evolved so much since back when I started in 1997 teaching. It's unbelievable how it's a science now, right? It's really, we're talking about, you know, children's psychology. We're talking about executive functioning skills. You know, you got to know your stuff, you know, when we're talking about developing human beings. So it's not just, I'm going to take this content and just go and be the sage on the stage. You know, we've got YouTube for that now. So it's got to be a lot more than that. It's got to be, you know, we're developing we're not only delivering content, but we're developing human beings to be successful adults later on and be contributing, you know, members of society, right? So
and I know for I think it was your last episode, was all about ChatGPT. You know, obviously
that's right.
So there's this massive extra tool, and you know, sort of group of technologies now, and that idea of us being more the editor, having an editorial role. You know, there's be a lot of content, etc., that's kind of made for us, or we can access easily, get it summarized, etc. We don't have to be writing everything ourselves necessarily, but more that editorial role, so selecting and analyzing and combining, you know, higher order thinking sort of stuff. I'm quite excited about
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So how do you see that playing into the schools, Jonathan? I'm curious, you know, when we talk about the chatbots and Chat GPT in particular, because that's the one that everybody's talking about. You know, I use it every day in the work that I do, and I think it's fantastic. We're talking about it in our schools now. Our students are not using them because, you know, you have to be 18, so they can't create the accounts. But it doesn't mean we don't talk about it, because it doesn't mean they're not going to create an account, because they have already. In fact, they created an account before I even knew ChatGPT existed. So we talk about it with our kids in terms of, you know, what is the right way to use it? How can I use it and how can I leverage it? And what's been really exciting, you know, are the teachers and just their excitement and their curiosity in terms of, you know, how can I leverage this as well? In my, you know, the planning of my courses and the content that I'm giving out to the students, and making it interesting, integrating different cultural elements, etc. So you know, so we're talking about that with them, and we're actually exploring different ways that a classroom teacher can actually use, you know, Chat GPT, for example, as a leverage. So, you know, I'm curious to see what you think about all that.
I mean, I kind of see there as being three, I guess, ways of talking about it in terms of education. And this is me sort of putting on my teacher hat. Even though I haven't been I haven't been school based for quite a few years. I've tried very strongly to hang on to that viewpoint, and, you know, much respect to, you know, you as well. I mean, you have a full-time role as a principal, like, you know, the teachers I work with in schools. I've always tried to hang on to that idea of whatever I'm talking about, you know, can it actually be used in the classroom tomorrow? Is it classroom ready? You know, is it school proof? Like, there's this whole, and that's, for me, that's really, really important. So in terms of Chat GPT, there's probably the three things. One is, how can it help you as a teacher yourself? And that's there's a lot of big ways, and I think that's why teachers are talking about it and really quite excited, is that finally there actually is something that can save you real time.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, you know, generating the first draft of you know, lesson plans and unit outlines, or whether it's you know, the rubrics it can generate, presentations, helping out with marking, etc. Like, so there's really good reasons why that teachers should be excited to get their own accounts and start learning about it. Then there's the idea of, okay, well, how can you as a teacher use it in the classroom with students? And there's a lot to talk about there. The third one would be students using it themselves, and that's an area that I don't think we're at really yet. I mean, apart from what you were talking about, definitely give them some insights and tips on using it, etc. Because they're obviously using it anyway, and they're going to be using it as soon as they get out into the workforce. But what you were talking about with age limits, and you know, it's still a bit unclear about how our user data gets fed back into the system. It's a very tricky area.
That's right.
So in terms of students having their own accounts, I'd sort of, when I'm doing PD with teachers, we just say, we're just not going to go there yet. And education departments are still formulating policy, etc. But in those first two areas, teachers using it for themselves and teachers using it. So I've had a lot of fun. I'm not sure if you heard of Hello History app. So that's an AI, chat bot where you can basically go, oh, I want to chat to this historical figure, or so
Really?
almost whatever area you're studying with students. And being space, I've done Neil Armstrong.
Yes.
So we don't get students to load that app themselves, but we put it up on the screen, and we just have a fun class discussion. And let's find out, well, what's it like going to the moon, being in space? Tell us about the real human, the effects, what it felt like, etc. But we have another challenge where the students need to try and break the AI or catch it out.
Okay.
Try and make it give us an error, because it will at some point.
Yeah.
And this is part of the educating as well. And we managed to get the Neil Armstrong bot to tell us that a day on the moon was 24 hours. But of course the moon, it rotates pretty slowly, so the days are much, much longer. So we were like, yes.
That's right. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, we got it. But yeah, that's the Hello History app. But at that early stage, and we think about design thinking, as I said, always using that as the framework. So you always start off with empathizing. Let's explore this new topic. Let's just spend some time playing around with what does it feel like? Who are the humans in this scenario? And so having a chat with Neil Armstrong bot, if our topic is the moon and space and humans living and working in space, that plugs really well in there. And that's sort of my philosophy, really. It's part of what I'm going to put into a book around design thinking that I'm working on with is that idea of we don't have to just stop what we're doing and now suddenly do only AI, or we just keep doing what we're doing, which is we start off by exploring and empathizing, and let's just plug that Hello History app in. That fits into what I'm already doing. So it's one of the things I've learned about technology as well is, and again, the hard way, is that the tech is not important as much as I personally am an early adopter, and I'll always love to grab the latest tech, and we need teachers doing that.
Absolutely.
But I've had some really good mentoring, I guess, to the point where I feel like I can step outside of that and go, no, hang on, I already have my learning goals and my learning process, and that never changes, or it does if it needs to, but you know what I'm saying. And then I choose the technology second. So for me, Hello History, it works brilliantly. For others, there might be a different AI tool that can help you at that sort of early introduction stage, and we all do that. We all introduce a new topic at some point, and that is one way that worked really well for me. But there might be other tools, etc., for other people. But for me, again, the important thing is that you're doing that exploring. Yeah, you're spending that time to properly get your head around a new topic and let students explore that.
And what a great way to differentiate again, right? So to shoot off, or to take off in that new unit, to be able to do that kind of an exercise where the kids, the students wouldn't even think of, even imagined doing that. I can just imagine talking to a chatbot that's like Neil Armstrong, and you're actually almost talking to him. I think that's just unbelievable. And we certainly didn't think of those things back when I was in high school, that's for sure. But Jonathan, you touched on your book, Design Thinking 5.0. So you're working on that. And I know you talked about it. It's a little bit of a mix of design thinking and, things to come. So did you want to talk to us about it a little bit more, a little bit what's give us a little preview maybe?
Yeah, definitely a preview of the thinking and, what's going into the book. It's one of these projects where I have no idea at this point, like how far it'll get me. There's been a couple of times where I'm like, yep, I've got it locked in. I know the chapter structure. But of course, the more you think around things, but that's all a fun part of the process. But a lot of it actually goes back to just sort of the years before STEM Punk. So I was in schools and then higher education, and then I had this time where I built up something called the Future We community.
Okay. Yeah,
I was very future focused, and it actually came from a question of me going, I've done this technology stuff with education for quite a few years. And everyone would agree, yep, that those technology skills are essential for the future for students, etc. But it became really obvious to me that there's a whole raft of more human skills out there as well that are going to be more and more important. Absolutely. So this was about 5-6 years ago, I guess. There were some really early type AI tools around, but it was pretty obvious even then that most of our job, our labor, what we do for work, these, in the last couple of 100 years is what I would call mental labor. Like we use our brains to make a living in some way. There's still a percentage of people that do physical labor, of course. But once upon a time, it was 99% of people did physical labor pretty much.
Absolutely.
And then there was a transition to, our period where most people do some kind of mental brain, that's our work. And mass education was a big part of making that possible. We can all pretty much read and write. We can communicate, work together, on that kind of level. And so, boom, here's our modern society, But once a lot of these tools starting to now be able to do the mental and the brain type stuff. Again, not all of it, sure, but we're really starting to see a bit of a change there, I think. And for me, it's as big as that change from physical to mental level. And so then the question is, well, what are humans going to do? So the Future We community was really founded around just figuring that out. It turned out to be like a 3-year project, I guess. And first of all, we just started engaging with teachers and professionals, people from different industry around the world. We eventually had a community of about 500 people around the world. Just investigating and interrogating this kind of question. We started off with, well, what are the skills? Like whether it's tools, mindsets, frameworks, what are they? We ended up compiling a list of about 50 that people sort of agreed on. And it's nothing that you haven't already heard, growth mindset, design thinking was one of the, your basic design thinking. But all those kind of mindsets, frameworks, ideas, etc. Sometimes a lot of them are called soft skills. Like more in the business world, I guess. Empathy, all those kind of things. So a list of about 50. Well, that's great. But it's not like you can go to someone and say, do this 50. Exactly. So then the next period of work was around I guess summarizing that, looking for the overlaps, etc. And so we managed to get that down to what we call 20 future literacies, and also I guess put them into a bit of a flow. So we had 4 so the 20 was sort of a flow of 4. And then it sort of became, now you can actually understand. So you could say to people, hey, start here. Here's the first one was actually called play. And that was just all around similar a little bit to design thinking of that empathize, but even before that, before you even, for instance, in a school setting, before you even give out the assignment sheet, which is what we normally start with.
Yeah, you're right.
Here's our topic. Let's just have some open free play time. Just explore it, play with that topic. So some students might discover this and bring it back and share it, and some this and that. And you build up a kind of, I guess, a general intrinsic understanding of the topic. And only then do you actually start to move in through the other phases. So the futurewe.org, the whole website of the project is up there, and people can see where the project got up to in terms of those 20 future literacies. And it was really foundational for me as well to have that real big picture thinking, I guess, around how not just what are these, even beyond technology, what are these really sort of, and most of them were those real human type skills. We also had, we don't have time to go through the whole thing, but the second of the 4 phases was relate, and that's all about the people around you. Like again, before you move into that, the project description or the assessment sheet, who are the people that you're going to be working with, like teaming up with, and spend some time getting that together and getting that in place properly first. And then a lot of those human skills come into that relate category as well. And then we wanted to thinking I guess the third phase the community was going, we want people to be able to assess themselves, like where are they strong and weak, across that. So we came up
Yeah.
with an assessment tool. So out of that work, and then the 3.5 years with STEM Punks, I've had a chance to really, I guess, put into practice a lot more.
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Design thinking, well, everyone knows design thinking, probably 1.0. It's your classic 5 or 6 step sort of process where you generally starts with empathize, and you end up going through, you'll prototype at some stage, and then you'll iterate at the end. And obviously it comes from that sort of design world, marketing, architecture. And there's a fascinating, if you really want to look into design thinking, it's a fascinating part of the Industrial Revolution, actually.
You're right.
I put my hand, so I have a history teacher background as well. So I love to look into the history of these things, but design thinking, it's very much, can we make creativity repeatable? And the Industrial Revolution did that for a lot of things. Like we started producing things. So how do you take something that someone might have once hand stitched and then produce the exact same thing?
That's right.
And so design thinking in a way is just a framework that does a similar thing, but for creativity or designing things. And the Industrial Revolution was all about almost everything becoming that. Let's get a process. And the scientific revolution,
right? That's right. Automated, and exactly. That's what it was all about. So
it makes perfect sense that we'd come up with design thinking at some point. But for me, there's been that classic early one, but which you might call design thinking 1.0, but there's been, it's expanded into other industries. There's some extra elements that you can add into it. And for me, especially from that work with Future We, that idea, even before empathize, which is normally the first stage of design thinking, even before that, having an open play period for me is really, really important. So part of what I'll write about is, why and how you can add a section at the start of design thinking. And there's also, there's some other elements like that to add in to really enrich it, make design thinking even better. And of course, the response to moving into that AI era is going to change the design thinking process itself a little bit as well. So
that's exciting.
I think that's my count, that from updating it, adding the separate sections. We get up to version 5. So that's
awesome.
The framework I'm writing that around. Yeah,
I think it's really interesting, especially with what's come. It's changing so fast, and to be able to, we want to stick to some basics that are like when we talk about design thinking. Those important basic processes, right? That we need to have. And like you said, it's to build on that. Now we've got AI coming, right? So the Industrial Revolution, we had the steam engine that came in, and then we had the assembly lines that came in, and then we had, the microchip that came in, and then, and now we're seeing AI. So how can we take that, and, how could that, in which way can it be a part of that important process, which is design thinking, and to be able to give that to our students? Wow. Because that's what they're going to be talking about, our kids that are starting in JK and kindergarten and grade 1, and they're in grade 1. Well, they're going to be talking about that kind of stuff. Who knows what's going to be out there by then. So
I think it's going to be amazing for them. I mean, imagine starting school and then all the way through school having an AI mentor or an AI,
it's crazy to think about that.
Follows you all the way through school and knows all of the previous things you've learned and worked on and can advise you. And like,
it's almost like having a coach right beside you the whole way, and it's actually your AI. So I think that's, I wasn't even thinking about stuff like this a year ago, because I just discovered ChatGPT, less than a year ago. So, and I can't believe, like last year at this time, I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't using it. I wasn't, and it's mind blowing, and it's life changing, right? And we're seeing it. It's going fast, and everybody's talking about it. So I think it's great that you're talking about that. You're going to be doing that book to put those things together.
Yeah, but if I can say anything about that, and having seen quite a few now waves of technology, where it's like, oh, okay, we got to learn this, and how are we going to integrate this? And the SAMR model, SAMR, is I'm still a huge fan of using that. But essentially, and I don't care if it's design thinking or like the sort of expanded version of design thinking that I'm using, whatever it is, if you've got that framework, then it doesn't worry me anymore. Like whatever new technology comes along, I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I know this works. It's helping engage students. It's human,
That's right.
I just have to plug that new thing. Like then it just becomes a matter of where do I plug it in? I've already got my sound for, my pedagogy.
That's right. You've got the human connections, the relationships, that's your base. That's what's the most important thing. Now, when this comes in, this chatbot, well, how can I leverage it? All while maintaining those important,
that's right.
those important base elements.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Definitely the way I would encourage doing that.
That's awesome. Well, looking forward for the publication of your book, and I'm definitely going to get my hands on that. I'm really interested, to learn, what you're thinking and how you're seeing putting those things together. So
yeah, cool.
Jonathan, a little while ago, we talked about, the importance of the importance of surrounding ourselves with the right people. We talked about, Codebreaker, X Factor, and Mammoth Learning, of course. So we know that's a community that's been building, and it's got quite a bit of momentum. So I'm just curious, Jonathan, what has been the impact of those communities and the fact that you're surrounding yourself with, that kind of community, kind of an impact has it had on you?
Well, I guess my little, we were talking about earlier about you naturally you're seeking out those other adventurous educators and, people who can support you, but also that you can learn from them, and you can support them as well. And it's not always, we often have the best intentions of doing that. But sometimes those communities just last for a while and then people get busy or whatever. But yeah, so with Brian Aspinall, he obviously started the Codebreaker publishing first, and then Matt with X Factor, and now Brett Slack is here in Australia with the Mammoth sort of side of things. Like those guys just have there's a value of we just want to put teacher voices out there. It's never going to be a big money making, from book sales, etc. feature. But the first thing is that there's plenty of amazing teacher voices out there that don't get any exposure.
That's right.
And so, I put my hand up really early on. I had known Brian and Matt just again from seeking out, like-minded people. I'd known those guys online. Brett, I know really well from here in Australia. So I was definitely going to put my hand up. But the biggest, I guess, attraction for me is that idea of connecting with other passionate educate. Like if you're willing to put up your hand and say, yep, I'm going to write a book and put it out there, then for me that's like, yep, I'd love to be connected with you.
Exactly.
So it's like having a podcast series is an excuse to chat with people. It's like, let's publish books and have an authors network. It's kind of an excuse to connect with other educators. So that's probably my favorite thing about it.
For educators by educators, right? So
basically.
I love that. That's great. So listen, Jonathan, it's been a fantastic conversation. I've got one last question for you.
Okay.
One more. So for the people that are listening to us today, Jonathan, if you had one wish for the people listening, what would that wish be?
We're talking about teachers and educators.
Let's say teachers, educators, or any other person that could be listening to this episode.
I'd say for me, it's just being given the space to be that little bit, adventurous, I guess. I still know what it's like, how busy the classroom is and all the demands, etc., that are on you. And it's can be almost impossible to actually find that time just to try that different lesson or do that different thing. So if it could be anything, it would be to give people that space to be that little bit more adventurous. I don't know, maybe different ways of doing that in different education systems, but overall that'd be the most valuable thing, I think.
That's awesome, Jonathan. So listen, for the people listening to us or watching on YouTube, we're going to have Jonathan's information over at the website. So you just need to head on down to inspireleadership.ca. In the podcast section, we will have some information there in the show notes. So Jonathan, it's been absolutely amazing. My very first international podcast guest. I love it, down in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Thank you so much. It's Saturday morning where you are. Here it's still Friday evening. It's almost 8 o'clock p.m. Go
and enjoy it now.
I will. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming to talk with me. It's been great meeting with you, and I'm looking forward to the future projects or future conversations that we're going to have you know,
Yeah.
within those communities that we're a part of.
Great. Well, thanks so much, mate, from my end. And yeah, I'd love to chat again in the future. Thanks
Awesome.
heaps,
Thank
Arun.
you. Thank you. Take care.